5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This week on As the Heel Turns, the guys count down the most overrated wrestlers of all time.
The long-awaited debut return of As the Heel Turns podcast. It's been too long, and we're back now with you. It is Gaz, Tigman, Zach By, Vinny, back with you with the top 5 most overrated wrestlers of all time. I cannot wait. I've been fired up about this list for weeks, and I'm interested to see how these guys interpret what overrated means.
At least the mics are on now.
That's right. The mics are on now. That would have been an overrated start to the podcast if we didn't have our mics on. I'm going to start with my number 5. We'll go around as we usually do, a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can always let us know what you think. Comment below on this video. My number 5, if we had done this 6 months ago, I would have had a different number 5. And Vinny, I know you've heard about this complaint from me before. I would have had Kevin Owens, the current WWE champion, at number 5, but it is March, and that's a whole different theory. I have a feeling about Kevin Owens and his physique and what Kevin Owens is. He's not on the list, though.
He's gotten fatter.
He has. He's enjoying his cookies. My number 5 is this guy instead. The guy's a current wrestler on the roster. He's my only current wrestler on the roster on my list, and his name is Finn Balor.
Woo!
Guys, I don't get the Finn Balor thing. This guy got pushed to the moon. His first WWE main roster match is a SummerSlam pay-per-view victory with a new championship. Like the old baby faces, they had something cool about them. Hogan and Cena, as much as people didn't like Hogan and Cena, I could get it. Like, their superhuman strength. The guys like Rey Mysterio can do something inside the ring that no one else can do, so fans will get on that side. Like Bayley, the female, like, she looks like a kid. Yeah. So I get all these things like why faces are faces.
A kid with a big ass.
Yeah, she has that. That's true. But I don't get the Finn Balor stuff. Maybe someone could explain it to me why this guy's so popular. For me, he's my number 5 most overrated wrestler.
Where did Finn come from before his popularity?
Ireland, I think? Or
it was
somewhere?
NXT, and he did a couple different indie promotions. I don't think they're indie promotions anymore in England.
Was he making waves at the
Yes,
at
Prince
the
Devitt.
Okay.
He was making huge waves. It was big when he came in NXT, but I agree with you guys. He got pushed too hard. Not to say he doesn't deserve that, but dude comes in a month later, he's champion.
I hate that, man. I respect, and I don't want to sound like too much of like an old fart here, but I've always...
That would be me.
That was Tig's job.
That's Tig's role. The dino. No, I've always respected, not that it's a prerequisite for me to be a fan, but I've always respected guys who paid their dues and came up through the ranks. And I know that like sounds like just so old school, but when a guy gets pushed too hard, it feels like it's like infringing on me. Like, let me identify who you are first and figure it out, because I wasn't at those shows in Ireland. I don't know who you are. Next thing I know, you're on the TV, in a top tier match. I'm with you. I like that. I like that pick.
Well, I think he did. He paid his dues. Just some people hadn't seen it. They were in NXT. So, but yeah, I do agree as well.
If you're a Punk guy or a Rollins guy or someone like who did the indie thing, like, there's so much respect here in the States when you're a Daniel Bryan and you wrestled in the local elementary school gym. I don't know what the hell Ireland's doing. I just don't.
True.
Maybe I'll be a fan of him eventually, but he's number 5
Hey, if
on
they
my
keep
list.
pumping out Becky Lynch's, hey, I'll fly over there sometime. Put a little meat on those potatoes.
Which way do we want to spin this week? Do you want to go Tig's number 5 or Vinny's number 5?
I think we've been going.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think we've been going
We'll
Tig.
go Tig 5.
We could do this. I'll give you my number 5 most overrated wrestlers of all time. Number 5 is Rikishi.
Ooh.
Very limited in the ring. What did that guy do?
That clothesline he took, though, that wasn't limited.
Yeah, with the stink face. I mean, come on. I mean, entertaining. He could dance. He could do his whole thing. But hey, the stink face thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
Very popular with the
Tig,
fans.
I love it. Tig,
Just
Tig,
never a big fan.
I love a lot of your selections.
Thank
I didn't
you,
even
Zach.
think of Rikishi, but they tried to push him. They did try to push him. And like the ceiling was only so high, so he just like squished up against the ceiling because we knew it was never going to happen.
Yes.
But they tried. I like it, Tig.
And then he started moving in the ring, and they realized, oh, God.
Why did Rikishi not work and Yokozuna did work?
Rikishi didn't work. Time. Look at who was... They did a 6-person Hell in a Cell with The Rock, Kurt Angle, Austin, Taker, Triple H... Some other guy by the name of Rikishi, you almost forgot.
He took the bump, though.
He did take the bump, but who else would have?
That's true.
Yeah, but Yoko was like the like we're
Yoko was super fat.
we're sports guys, right? So, guys and I are, and sometimes when we talk about the NBA, we say, hey, you need to be really good or like be really bad and try to like get a top draft pick. Don't be in between. Yokozuna was the extreme of something. You know, he was the biggest guy we had ever seen, 600-pound wrestler who could lift his leg over his head. Yeah. You know, and I think it was such an oddity, a mix of like this like monstrous person mixed with athleticism. I love Yoko. But that's like a sore spot with me.
All right, Zach.
Oh, that's me. Okay.
Yeah. Unless someone else had Yoko on their list, which I don't want to find out about, but go ahead.
5 on my list. This, although it's number 5, this kind of pricked me the most because as a kid, I really, really liked this guy. And he, in fact, when I was younger, he was he was my favorite wrestler for a short period of time, about 1994, and that's Lex Luger. This is a guy that they really tried to make into like Hulk Hogan 2.0, but beyond his look, he didn't have anything going for him. He was dreadful on the mic, like one of the worst I have ever seen. And then when he got in the ring, super clunky, you know, was always trying to like fire up the crowd, but there was no ring substance there to actually do it. And beyond the promotional stuff and the look and the gimmick of it, I look back at like that young kid just kind of getting caught up in like the, you know, flamboyancy of what they were trying to do there. But I look at it, I don't find myself ever like when I go to the network watching a Lex Luger match.
No. He made my list. We can talk about that later.
By God, he made the list.
Luger did make your list?
Luger is on that. Yeah.
I did like Luger in his days when he was, for the short time with the Four Horsemen. He had that for a little while. But talk about the WWE gimmick.
Lex Express.
The Lex Express. And
he comes in as the narcissist.
The narcissist.
He comes in first when Bobby Heenan is like introing him. Now that was I love that. I love like that little window in time. But like get him behind a microphone or get him in the ring, which are like two of like the 3 or 4 most fundamental things about being a pro wrestler. He just struck out.
But as a fan of NWA, when Luger was in there, when you see him show up on WWE television or WWF at the time as the narcissist, I'm like, that's Lex Luger. That would drive me nuts when a guy would jump ship. And you couldn't acknowledge.
And I remember the first time,
he did it twice, right? Because he did it on the first Nitro ever. He jumped ship. I think he jumped from the WWF at the time and popped up on WCW in like the Mall of America in Minneapolis.
That's right. That's right. Good call. And I remember the first time that he was ever shown on WWF program when he originally came over from WCW. He was in a screen, or he was in the TV. It was like a remote. Does anybody remember this? And he's got this like a champion, champion, you know, the logo champion, the old jersey and stuff. He had this like shirt on, and Heenan is like saying, "You're the greatest." He's like, show us what you got."
Yes.
And he slowly takes off his shirt. He's like, "Bobby." He's like, "Only for you I do this, Bobby." And he's like, he starts singling out the different muscles on his body.
You are not as good as a narcissist.
I mean, it was really, that was a cool little push, but really, again, once you got him on the microphone and once you got him in the ring, he was a dud. Where is he on your list?
So we're going to do this part?
Do we want to peel it off? Because I have a question about Luger for you specifically, Vinny.
Okay. Luger on mine. Here we go with the load. Load blown, number 1.
Wow.
By God!
Come on.
By God!
He's number 1. Mainly, you look back at his NWA days. He was getting pushed to the moon, while you had able guys like Sting, who were getting pushed, not as quick. And I get it. He has a great look, great physique. He can move in the ring like he can go, but not well and not consistently. You can't see him in those hour matinees with Flair. While other guys around him could be. Then he goes to WWE, and it's like, what the hell is this? The narcissist. Well, that's a perfect gimmick for him. And from that point, what did he do in WWE? Name one thing that you can think you'll go back and be like, man, that's something that I'm going to never forget for the rest of my
Express.
life. That was a failure.
And it was a failure. And the one thing that I will, my rebuttal, and he's on my list, and he's not as far down, but the one thing I do remember about Lex, as we talked about it in a previous episode, is the finish at Royal Rumble 94.
And that's what I was going to ask Vinny, exactly. How much did that finish at the Rumble 94 affect his overrated, underrated status?
That cooled him off so much, because you got to think,
Let's recap that if we could for the older gentleman who's losing his memory.
He went back. Oh, one sec. Excuse me. He went back. He was supposed to main event Mania, and he did, but they had so little faith in him that they did that stunt at the Rumble. And then beyond that, they had so little faith in him that they didn't have him go on in the last championship match at Mania. The only time we've had two titles. One title defended twice.
If you don't remember the finish in '94 Rumble, he was wrestling Yokozuna.
Oh, he remembers the finish. He just didn't remember us talking about it.
Oh,
no. I want to remember the finish.
Yeah. So they're doing the '94 Rumble. He's wrestling Yokozuna, and it's the pinnacle of the Lex Express. Like, they've hyped up this to be the match. And Yokozuna gets counted out.
Yes.
And Lex Luger wins, and they go nuts, and they, like, carry him off on his shoulders. Like, what a victory.
Yes, that's right.
And I was referencing the end of the '94 Royal Rumble when him and Bret Hart went over the top rope together, and they
you're
I was thinking SummerSlam. I'm sorry, I mixed that up. I was thinking SummerSlam '93.
I remember that though too. And then they tried to put him over with the slamming Yokozuna when they had all the wrestlers get in a line and try to slam Yoko, and they'd like pull their back out and stuff like that. And then Lex comes in and lifts Yoko up. Again, they tried to push and with the Lex Express and with the look and there was some substance there to sell tickets, but once you actually got to the match,
oh yeah,
he didn't have much substance as far as a wrestler. But I got to tell you, not a bad finisher, the torture rack.
I love the torture rack.
And he did a great job on that. I mean, he actually looked like he was hurting that guy.
Oh yeah,
when he was putting all his muscle into it when he would do the torture rack. Great finisher, but yeah,
for
it didn't
15
pay off
seconds a match.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
right.
And especially when he
try selling that to your wife.
Yeah, exactly.
The backstretch is going to be great, though. Just trust me.
Hang in there. Crossed over in the NWO. When you're a kid, he's like, oh my God, he's got Hogan up in the torture rack.
Yes.
That's real exciting stuff when you're a kid.
Well, from number 1 with Lex Luger on to number 5.
All right, let's hear number 5.
Number 5 is the person WWF was trying to make Luger into. Number 5 on my list is
You're going
Hulkamania,
there.
brother.
All right.
Now, the caveat with this, I struggled where I was putting Hogan. I knew he was on the list. But I struggled because I've seen some of his earlier matches before he was champ. I've seen some of his Japanese matches with Stan Hansen. And I've seen some matches where dude could go. I mean, he carried a ailing Andre to one of the most memorable moments in wrestling history. Hogan could wrestle when he wanted to, but his character, he didn't have to, really. So that's why I struggled where to put him. But number 5 is because a leg kick isn't knocking a dude out.
Hey, back in the
that was the era, though.
Back in the 80s, it did.
Yeah, thank you, Tig.
Meanwhile, SummerSlam 06, he kicked out of an RKO out of nowhere. Oh, he didn't kick out of a leg drop.
I may be the only one in this entire room that does not have Hogan on their list. You don't have Hogan either.
I don't either.
Absolutely not.
No, Hogan isn't on my list.
No, maybe the reasoning for me not putting Hogan on the list is the same reason for you guys not putting on the list. And I think, Vinny, you're still in the majority of wrestling fans who would call Hogan overrated. And it's because almost like the LeBron James or Michael Jordan effect. You have to pick a side. You're an MJ guy. You're a LeBron guy.
I like that,
and
guys.
they're so good that you become so like, they're not the greatest of all time. They can't be that good. It's 30 years later. And if you go to someone not like us, who's just like an okay kind of sort of knows about wrestling, and you say name wrestlers, Hulk Hogan is still the first name that they say. He made it cross over to Sports Illustrated.
Right.
He's the big reason why
they put his matches on MTV.
You're right.
I mean, and I just want to interject here my opinion on it. When I think of wrestlers and what makes them great, I'm thinking in-ring ability, of course. I'm thinking mic skills. I'm thinking look, and then I'm also thinking about what moments did you give the business. When you think about Hogan,
there's so many of them.
Mic skills, 10 out of 10. I mean, that guy was cutting promos when guys were trying to figure out what the hell a promo was. You got your look. I mean, the 24-inch pythons, that speaks for itself.
Say your prayers, eat your vitamins.
Eat your vitamins. And then you talk about moments, I mean, from WrestleMania 1 and even before that, right up to WrestleMania 9. I mean, Hogan
made wrestling what it is today.
You're right.
You could say overrated. I couldn't put him on the list.
I put him overrated, basically. Think about this. We've all heard who's on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. To me, it's Hogan, it's Flair, it's Austin, it's Rock. And when you look at all 4 of those guys, which one of them stands out among ring work? that would be Hogan. Now, that's no knock on him because he is great at everything else, and that's why he's at number 5.
I do got to mention
that's why he's number 5, and he is barely on this list because there are other names I'm looking at down here that suck in the ring.
I do want to mention this article talking about overrated and Hulk Hogan. The originator of the 5 moves of doom. There wasn't much else after blocking punches, his clothesline, big boot, body slam, and a leg drop. That's basically what it's
That's what it was. That's a Hogan match.
Yeah. But think about what
Super Hogan, not Super Cena.
Think about how transcendent the Simple Machine was. A cotton gin.
Yeah.
A high school kid could probably build it now if you gave him instructions,
Yep.
but at the time it's revolutionary.
If it ain't broke, why fix it? I mean
right?
fans were going crazy over
That's
it.
right. That's
Over
right.
under.
I
The next
always
time
has
we
a-
say cotton gin.
As a young Hulkamaniac growing up, hey, I'm an old man. I remember the cotton gin.
Shout out to Eli Whitney.
As a young Hulkamaniac growing up, though, I always waited. You knew that was the end with the block of the punch and the whole punches and the leg.
And then he'd Hulk up.
But it was
Shit, man.
Yeah, you wanted to see that, so I love it. I could not put him on the list.
He was my guy growing up. I have my number 4 here, and I feel like I need to start ducking in the room because I think you guys are going to assault me for this, and especially my friend Tig to the left here is not going to like
I just
it.
said Hogan. I'm just
I
saying.
know
He's
who's
reaching
coming.
back. You're reaching
Yeah,
back
I
in
know.
time.
And the worst part is I've met this guy, and he was the absolute man. And I know Tig has met this guy before, and he knows he's the absolute man. And it's Ric Flair at number 4.
I knew that was coming.
Now, hang on for the Flair thing. And I know. Here's why Flair
I
is
say
at
that's
4
almost
for me.
worse
Guys.
than Hogan.
Hang on. Let me defend myself.
Guys, I think I got to leave.
business is about to pick up.
The reason why I have to put Flair here, it comes more so down to age for me. Because remember when I'm consuming the product here, I'm consuming the product in the mid-90s as my baseline of when I'm watching wrestling. So when Ric Flair hits the 90s, and I get the 91 Rumble, or 93 Rumble. 92, right in the middle. There you go. Compromise for the win. When he wins that, that's an awesome moment. It's my favorite Rumble. We all agreed on that when we
great,
did
yes.
it, right?
Yes.
So when I'm hitting wrestling in 95, 96, 97, Ric Flair's almost 50. He's 47, 48. When he hits WCW that first time, fair or unfair as it is, they're putting Ric Flair in the mid-card. It's the NWO versus Sting and Luger and they're kind of like, what do we do with Flair? How do we handle Flair? And then when he goes on to the WWF after that, we're still not getting the same Flair. What he did for all of his territories and stuff was awesome, but he's a 16-time heavyweight champion. How many times did Jerry Lawler win the Memphis Wrestling Championship? He's probably a 30-time world champion. I love Flair. I think he's awesome. But when you look at other careers, WrestleMania main events, moments in the WCW or WWF when WCW was its most popular, it's hard for when I picked up Flair to be a Flair not overrated guy.
I can see that. I can see the trouble. I could never put Flair because dude was one of the best in the ring ever. One of the best on the mic ever. One of the best characters ever. One of the best appearances ever. One of the best entrances ever.
Don't stop, David.
One of the best catchphrases. Well, all of them ever. I could not put him on this list. The fact that he could probably just say no and his head's gonna bleed is the best part.
Yeah, no, and like you, if we did, in which I think we did do 5 best wrestlers ever.
We did.
I think he would be on my list. Flair to me gives someone like Shawn Michaels or someone like that hope where you're not this gargantuan star, you're a modest figure, but you're amazing on the mic and you're amazing in the ring.
Space
Guys, you are on ecstasy.
Much like Flair for the majority of his
Tig,
career.
are you going to echo that comment, or are you going to keep it clean for the podcast? Keep all insults to a minimum, please.
Yeah, no. Hey,
I thought you were leaving.
it's all about opinion here. You know what I mean?
I'll get a Flair chop on the way out. won't I?
Yeah, there you go. We'll give you the Flair chop, and then we'll put you in the figure 4. Am I moving up? Well, yeah, that's I don't agree with you on that one, but
Let's
hey,
go on to number 4
wanna
for
move
you,
on?
Tig.
Yeah, what do you got there?
Number 4 is a guy. I think he actually did he reach Ric Flair's status as 6-time champion yet? Or no?
Cena.
6 times?
15. Oh, yeah, he has. He tied it
Yes.
16 times.
Yeah,
John
Anybody
Cena.
else have John Cena?
No.
I have John Cena, who I think his moves in the ring are average at best.
He's getting better.
I don't know. As much as I don't care for him as a wrestler, mad respect for the guy for his charity work, and I think you guys all probably agree with me.
Yeah, I guess he's
But John
number
Cena-
1 on Make-A-Wish is for people
Yeah.
who have granted wishes. He's number 1 by a
Had
wide
like
margin.
25 championships, I think he's held. I mean, and people hate him, right? You either hate him or you like him.
See,
What's it stand now?
The thing with Cena, at least for me, he's on the list of names I wrote down for like who I would put on it, but he's not numbered. He's not one of the top 5, and that's because he's gotten better in the ring. He is amazing on a microphone.
He is.
The moves he does in the ring, he's moved past those 5 moves of doom. I mean, he started doing a springboard stunner. You don't see people half his size do that.
Yeah.
So some of the moves he's been breaking out, I have respect for. The fact that he went 2.5, 3 years without a belt, that just shows he's cooling off, but he's a stable figure in the company, much like Hogan. If you're a wrestling fan in the last 10 years, what's the first name you're going to say? John Cena.
Yeah, it's a different era.
But I can't put him on here because he has gotten better in the ring. He's not as bad as the top 5. At least my list.
I loved the old school Cena. I don't know if you guys remember him when he was a white rapper.
Oh, yes.
I thought it was
Basic
hysterical.
thugonomics, you
Yeah,
know.
that's right.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Word life.
Life, yeah.
I was like 13. I'm like, they got a white rapper like Eminem here? Like, this is great.
How
Yo,
you
he had
wearing
that-
a different jersey every week?
And he had that chain with like
yeah.
actual like
The
locks of a chain.
throwbacks were sick.
Now, I remember that. How did they transition them to
Going
what he
to
is now?
Boston
did
wearing
they
wearing
kill
a
that
Yankee
gimmick?
jersey.
I'm trying to remember now. I thought he was doing like more so like a military gimmick. Like he'd go to
Yeah.
like the camo and then it was like a soldier
Yep.
gimmick and then he like morphed into the superhero sort of gimmick that it is now.
With the $20 Kmart Cena sneakers.
Yeah, you know, that
When
stuff.
he
Right,
went
right.
over to Raw in June of 2005 with that draft, that was really the turn of it. I remember him coming out with the Spirit of St. Louis jersey on. I remember him having a hat. I don't think he had it backwards, but from that point, you started seeing him wear his own T-shirts, not necessarily jerseys, because he had to sell merch, and he did a good job of it. So I want to say summer of 2005, that was the moment where he stopped the rapper gimmick, except for that one week in like 2012 where he came back to go up against The Rock and pulls out the bag of Planters nuts. That was good.
Now, I almost put Cena on my list, and I wondered, I'm going to kind of toss this guys on before we get to Zank's 4. Does Cena never switching to a heel? Like, let's take the rapper
can't
stuff
do
out of
it.
it. Like, does that hurt his legacy? Because everyone else did it. Austin was a heel at one point. Rock was. Mick Foley was. Hogan was in the Flair. Even though Flair as good as he is, like he was a heel. The Flair, him not being a heel when he was a champion, did that ever hurt his legacy, or is it gonna?
I don't think they should flip him to be a heel because he does so good as a face. And if he goes heel, it's going to be the same reaction, except the people that are booing him are not going to cheer him, and the people that are cheering him are going to boo him.
Yeah. Cena will
it
never.
Doesn't make sense.
I just think that I think a lot of people will agree that Cena will never go heel.
He doesn't have to
because of the St. Jude's thing. But why would that? How could that stop an organization like the WWE from making?
It also drops off merch
I just
sales.
don't see it happening.
So that's the direction where I was going to go, Vinny. Is that first of all, I would never put Cena on the list of most of 5 overrated. But to the question that you said, does it hurt his legacy? In my eyes, it does. From a pro wrestling fan standpoint, I've been waiting for Cena to take this gigantic machete and just throw it in everyone's back. And really, that's what the business has needed at points in recent years. And to just put a shockwave through the business, and they haven't done it. And I think the fundamental reason for not doing it is business, because they move too much merchandise with the young kids.
Yep.
And they would flip that, and they would affect their bottom line. And I genuinely believe that that's the reason why they haven't done it.
And if he was so sour with the fans, which he's not, that's the whole thing. You look at Hogan. Hogan, 10 years into his run, 94, 95, he wasn't getting cheered. Cena, 12, 13, 14 years into his run, he's still getting cheered.
Right, even if it's half the building,
He's still
if you
getting
can
something.
get half of a 20,000 seat arena to still cheer you 15 minutes or 15 years in, you're still doing something right.
The crowd
in
was
that
hot to
respect.
see Hogan flip. Hogan's the one that you can compare him to with this. But at the same moment, without Hogan turning heel, we might not have the same wrestling that we have now.
I think that in order to build another guy like Cena, you need to, and this is just me, like conspiracy theory kind of, you need Cena to make some brutal, epic turn where you take an ultimate face within the business, like I wouldn't even know, like a Jim Ross or someone who's just beloved, and just crush them, and then have someone else like a throw out you said Finn Balor. I don't know if that's the right. I don't know if that's the right combination. But to try to build someone up to Cena's level, have them go against a heel Cena.
You're right.
Okay, number 4 on my list, Batista. Batista, I thought for me, had an incredible look, and it stopped there. Microphone skills, terrible. In-ring ability, below average. Moments. When I close my eyes, knee-jerk reaction, when I think of a moment of Batista, it's the thing with the evolution, the up-down. That's what comes to mind. Not an in-ring moment. And this is a guy that they put the heavyweight championship on 4 times. They gave him the WWE championship twice, but he just never did it for me.
I couldn't agree more. And now he's doing Hollywood movies that are bombing, too. I mean,
see, I would have put Batista on my list easily. It's just, there are, I grew up in that moment. I grew up watching every single second of wrestling when Batista was on top. And it was a time where they needed to produce new stars. And Batista, as a 12, 13-year-old kid, seeing somebody beat Triple H's ass, I like that. But you're right. I think he was not as limited in the ring as some, but he also wasn't spectacular. That's my opinion.
Guardians of the Galaxy, the terrible movies Batista's in now. The weird part about Batista, and Vinny, I'm kind of siding with you on this one, is that when that was going on, the Batista push and the evolution thing, at that time in wrestling, you could feel the new era coming. It was Batista and Cena, and that matchup at that Rumble when it ended up getting botched and McMahon tears his quads and all that.
Right.
Like, I could see they were both kind of sort of faces, even though Batista was like a part of evolution, but it was like, wow, this guy's awesome.
You could feel it coming.
Yeah, and it's kind of the best comparison I feel like now we can have to Batista is sort of like Roman Reigns because they were the same background.
Nice parallel,
Right.
guys.
I think Roman's better in the ring, though, personally.
Maybe.
And I think
I think
Roman's
he's
better
a
on the
bit
mic.
more limber.
He's
a little
probably
bit
a
more
better
limber.
athlete, just straight up athlete
Yeah.
on athlete.
I like the analogy.
But you know
I
what I'm
like
saying?
the analogy.
Evolution,
Yes.
the Shield, the powerhouse
Yes.
versus the powerhouse.
Yes.
Rumble versus Rumble.
Being pushed
controversial
on you
wins.
legitimately. Yeah, I like that. Well done, guys.
All right, so number 4 on my list. All right, Zach, I'm going to duck just like Gaz did earlier. Duck and cover, get under the desk here.
You're not going to do it.
Number 4.
You told me in the hallway
He
yesterday
is
that
number
you weren't going to do it.
I said that he would be on it, but
This
I
is
will
a heel
I
turn.
will give him
This
positives.
is a personal friendship heel turn. Go
He
ahead.
is number 4. Number 4, Zach. Number 4. He's not number 1. Calm down.
All right.
Kevin Nash. And not Diesel. Diesel is not on my list.
That
Kevin
softens the
Nash.
blow a little bit for Zach. 'Cause Zach's a diesel guy.
That's a little morphine.
Kevin
That's
Nash
a little morphine.
is on my
what
list.
about Oz? Is Oz on your list?
Oz is, how is he not?
Vinny Vegas?
No, his name's Vinny. Kevin Nash on my list. Simply, he wasn't very well versed in the ring. He was put on top in WWE at a time where they needed something new, and he was 7 feet tall. There's that. But he was okay in WWE. That was a time where not many guys in the company could go. When he went to WCW, you put him in a tag team. Hey, keep the dude in a tag team. I don't look at him as a main eventer. But you go beyond that. Finger poke of doom. He booked that. And thought that would work. Horrible. Beyond that, all the injuries he would accrue for just stepping. Simple things like that.
Very injury prone.
He couldn't really go. A jackknife powerbomb, I thought it was a lazy powerbomb because you don't even get the guy all the way up.
But
That's what she said.
You
But you
planned
drop,
that
you just beyond that though, name a whole lot of moves that he did.
I mean, he's sort of like the example of Hogan, who's got an arsenal of 5 moves. Right, he's got the big hip India. He's got the power slam.
Yep.
He's got the big boot. He's got the jackknife.
Of course, you can name all his moves.
Right. So, to me, I think you're off on this. And of course, these are subjective. But even if you're going to isolate just Nash, which I don't think is fair because it's the same person.
Okay, good. Diesel's on the list too.
Oh, no, heel turn. Chance shot to the back.
God almighty! Let me pull this out of my back. You dick.
Oh.
He was the world champion. He's had great matches with Bret Hart. He had the original Royal Rumble run where he's tossing
You're
guys
right.
over. He goes to WCW. He has that the NWO run.
NWO
You're going
right
against
there.
a fundamental member of
That
NWO.
was brilliant. Brilliant,
When he
NWO.
put Bischoff through the stage.
That
And
was
then his
great.
battle with Goldberg
With a lazy
at
power
Starrcade.
bomb.
I love that.
He
lazy
needed a
powerbomb, though.
taser. He needed a taser to beat Goldberg. How good is he?
Not to compromise on the Nash thing, but this is how I kind of feel, Kevin Nash. There's not a lot of 7-footers on planet Earth
They're
that
alive
are
at
good
that
athletes,
age.
that are alive, one, or can actually physically move around and be an athlete in a ring.
true.
So that's why Kevin Nash is still a very good wrestler, but I kind of view Kevin Nash's career like a stock. If I could sell Kevin Nash at some point in WCW and be like,
Yeah.
that's the best I'm
Like
going to get out of
96.
Right. That's it. Like, give me the outsiders. Like, give me an angle like when they're really, really hot and sell right now. Like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. Get me out right now. Sell. That's
pretty good.
And then after all of that, like, hey, you're kind of hurting your. It's kind of like the Hall of Fame in sports. Like, get out. You're not as good as me. You're throwing a lot of interceptions. You're hurting the WCW.
But-
what are you doing, Nash? Why are you coming back to wrestle CM Punk? What are you doing?
See,
Get
but
out.
The other reason he is on this list for me, you got to also think he was a booker in WCW for quite some time. He was booking himself on top when there were guys that should have been on top above him. That's why a lot of guys,
Who?
Benoit,
Not
Eddie
main
Guerrero.
event guys. Yo, see, here's the thing. Those guys don't move the needle main event-wise in 1995, 1996. They just didn't.
No, but here's
I think he was the best option for WCW at the time in terms of maybe not the 1A, but him, Hogan, Hall, that group. I mean, how could you not have the hottest guys in the business at the top of the card?
because that's what killed the company.
in 5 years from now. I
I
wore out
understand that because
after
he
a
was
while,
super
but-
power hungry and all that backstage. I get that.
That would be the other reason because he was in a lot of
Touche.
main events because of how power hungry he was, because of the fact he had creative control. Did he deserve to be there? Maybe. Did he deserve to win all those matches? Maybe not.
Again, not to split it in half, and I don't want to compromise, but like I can see what you're saying. Like in '95, the answer is Nash. If you push Benoit and Malenko, throw Malenko out there.
I mean,
Throw
99.
Right, but let those guys build to that point so there's some believability factor that the 5'8" Guerrero is going to be the 7-footer in the ring. There
They
still
did it with
has to-
Mysterio.
I know, and there still has to be some believability factor when two human beings are in a match together.
Right,
that,
right.
How the hell are they going to pull this
We ended
off?
up with Jarrett as a champion because of Nash. Just saying.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to number 3 here. And I fought really hard between my 3 and my 2, and I don't know if 3's on anyone else's list, but it may just be a personal vendetta for this
love
guy. And it is Triple H at number 3. I really,
no.
honestly,
Whoa!
guys,
Catch me
Your list is
outside.
horrible.
wait, why is this surprising to you guys? I'm stunned by this.
He's
Like,
good in the
surprising.
ring. He's good on the mic.
Who's he banging at night? He's
I
banging
get
the
that.
boss's daughter.
He's a booker.
Okay, come on.
Hang on a second.
Maybe the Hunter Hearst Helmsley days, but I mean, come on.
Wait a second.
His theme music is good enough to make him not be on
Tell
this
me
list.
about it.
You honestly believe Triple H, it is what, mid-40s now, would still be in paper? The dude main evented Mania last
Okay,
year.
you got.
That's
okay.
true.
I thought he was
Okay,
great,
so
though.
what
I
about
thought-
the first 10 years of his career then?
It was a great match.
It was a good match.
I think he still got it.
I think he's a good wrestler when he's not wrestling the whole time. But like, we're at a point now with Triple H that we get it. He's like this Vince McMahon role, but sort of like the wrestler. What would Triple H have been if it wasn't for Stephanie and the family? He wasn't the best in DX. He wasn't the best, kind of sort of the best in Evolution, but you could go back historically and go back and wonder who had a better career, Orton or Triple H. That's for another podcast. You go numbers to numbers, it's pretty close.
Oh, no.
I think it is. Orton's got more championship reigns, and he was younger and did it quicker.
See, I think Triple H, there's something different with him. He's good in the ring. He's not the best in the ring. He's good on the mic. He's not the best on the mic. But he's good enough to where he deserved to be where he was without the Stephanie factor. You got to think, when he got to that point in 99, Stephanie wasn't around. Stephanie wasn't in that picture at first. Stephanie wasn't even in the picture other than storyline until 2002. So McMahon,
Wait, hang on. 2000 WrestleMania, the Fatal 4-Way match.
Vince
between the-
Mc-
WrestleMania 2000.
Vince McMahon
Yeah, that was that.
hated the fact that Stephanie was dating Triple H behind the scenes, and he nixed it. He made it stop. He ended it. And Triple H was still getting pushed. You also got to think, that's career suicide.
It didn't seem like career suicide.
Because it worked. It would have been if it didn't. The thing is,
It's a little
Triple
bit
H,
easier when your daughter's saying, "Please, Daddy, please, I love this
Okay,
man."
true.
But so guys, are you holding that? I don't know if nepotism's the right word, but are you holding that
Linda McMahon's
relation
on my
to
list.
Stephanie? Can you separate the two? Like, can you separate his success and his ability and the moments that he's had from the marriage.
I could have if this didn't happen the last 3 to 5 years. Triple H, if he had said, you know what, guys, I'm done in 2009. I had my run. I'm good to go. Fine. Go back the last 5 years in wrestling. This is why he's even more so the overrated part of it. Every hot storyline we've seen the last 5 years in wrestling, who stuck that big old beak in it? Triple H? Think about this for a second, right? One of the hottest storylines in wrestling in the last, I'll even go 20 years if you want to go deeper with this. CM Punk's mic drop, pipe bomb, whatever.
He shouldn't have stuck his nose in that.
Okay, Triple H stuck his nose in there.
He shouldn't have.
How about The Shield? Oh, wait. Evolution came back and wrestled them. How about CM Punk? Oh, I said CM Punk. There's another one. Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns at WrestleMania
so you're
last
saying
year.
he puts himself proximity to the hottest guy.
How about Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania?
That worked, though. That got D-Bry over more.
But we can't
Did you
keep
just
doing
call
this.
him D-Bry?
I have a signed photo of him. Thank you very
hang on.
much.
Tuck your penis right now.
What? How about NXT? NXT became the hottest thing in wrestling. He now runs NXT. Like,
He started it.
Vinny, you're buying into this Triple H Kool-Aid. Every hot storyline the last 6 years, Triple H has put himself in it. Like, what are we talking about? It's like being in every best movie, and you're the director of the movie, and you're putting yourself as the lead actor in every good movie you're in. You can't do that. No.
Can I tell you, though,
That's
a couple
why
of
Nash
years
is on
back,
my list.
As an older guy who loves the nostalgia, a couple of years back, I thought it was, you know how I go through, I've gone through phases where I tune out.
Sure.
Sting coming to WWE was huge for me.
Who'd he wrestle?
Sting fighting Triple H. I thought it was awesome. I thought WrestleMania that year was awesome.
Sting should have gone over.
I loved seeing who came out, the Click and NWO and all that stuff. I mean, some people said that didn't make sense. Why did it happen?
because they were your breed. They're dinosaurs.
I loved it. I loved Sting showing up out of nowhere. That it re-energized my love for the WWE at the time. I just thought it was a refreshing, cool angle. Sting finally in WWE. Who thought? And then that damn Seth Rollins has to destroy his career.
Yeah.
Sting would have been going a little longer if hadn't that injury happened.
So I feel like I need to jump in and say this. I know we're up against
Brock Lesnar, by the way, too. Snuck that in. Triple H as well fought him at last year.
Right.
That's right.
So I want to say this because I think it's important for your point for saying Triple H. I don't think by you having him on your most overrated list, you're saying that he wasn't a great wrestler, or however you interpret it. But to the level that people interpret him, you don't think that he should be held in that high regard, as high of a regard as folks put him. That's not saying that he didn't have a great career otherwise, separate from that. Because I have to be honest with you, and I didn't put him on the list because I felt like it would be saying, Jesus never lived or something. But I almost put Undertaker on this list because
I know somebody in the room that probably has him on their list.
Well, here's my rationale. Because of the level that people put him at, I'm not saying that he's not a great. I'm saying he's not what folks say he is. Therefore, in my interpretation, he is overrated. So
Undertaker? I love it.
I think that coincides with what your mindset. You're not shitting on Triple H to shit on Triple H. You're saying, I don't think that he's the level. What you guys think he is?
I just want to side with Triple H because I'd like to work for WWE someday.
That's my move on our show. I know you can't get up in the bosses. That's my move.
We'll get you in there, referee, or maybe a
Too fat
manager.
for a referee. I gotta be backstage.
Take number 3 for
Number
you on your
3
list.
on my list is a one-time former Intercontinental Champion. Feed me more.
Oh, like, you know what?
Like he was ever,
You know what?
like he was ever rated at all.
He was a champion.
Yeah, you know.
Oh, boy.
Thank you. Ryback sucks. Dump him. That is the most unarticulate
The big
thing
guy.
I've said.
He's
The
now
bi-
touring. He's doing the indie circuit now. The big
podcast
guy.
circuit, all that
I'm
nonsense.
neither here nor
He's
there.
got the
on
name
Ryback.
too, right? Didn't he get to keep the name?
The
No,
big
he's
guy.
used by the
Oh,
big
no.
guy.
He's using big guy.
They should have let him keep it. He needs to go from indie circuit to India.
Yes.
And go stay there. He's the worst wrestler.
Terrible.
And the reason that he's not on my list, he's one of my least favorite I've ever seen because I never thought he was over to the point of interpreting him to be overrated, but I'll co-sign that. I'll co-sign that name any day, Tig.
And bad at selling too. I mean, terrible.
The worst.
You know,
The worst. He's a Neanderthal.
Bad at selling, but I'll say this: that Feed Me More stuff when he was a face, it was
it
working.
did work for a bit. Yeah,
and
it
they
did.
kept him as a face a little bit, and I know he's not going to be
They
Punk at
shouldn't
that
have put him up.
time.
They shouldn't have put him up against Punk.
No, they shouldn't have. But like, if they moved it quicker, like the Daniel Bryan Yes chant, when that got over, they could have done it 18 months previous, and it would have worked.
Yeah.
It just people liked it. The Feed Me More thing. They just didn't want him to be a face because they thought like the Goldberg chants were something. Like 6 more months with that, and I think Ryback, at least not a great wrestler, and I get that would have been overrated, and I agree with that pick, but give the guy a little bit more, I would have said. Give it a little bit longer of a run.
All right, moving to number 3 on my list. This is a guy who held the world title for nearly a year. He accumulated 24 championships during his time.
Just say we know it's not Diesel.
He's still...
Like, I wish the camera would be on here for a look.
Hey, the first remark.
This guy, he held the U.S. title, every sort of title that the WWF had, WWE. That's JBL. One of my least. You know what? This was a guy. He was a unique character. I get it because he was a real life. He made a bunch of money on the stock market, and they played that character. I get it. I never was a fan. I never was a fan of him on the mic. I was never a fan of his character. I thought his look was very like blah. And I never liked JBL.
As much as I make those Diesel remarks, I agree with you 100%. I just remember I was watching but not watching a whole lot of SmackDown at the time, and all of a sudden I'm like, they're having Bradshaw main event with Guerrero for the title? Like, right. Bradshaw. It was already hard enough to picture Eddie there. Not to say he didn't deserve it, but then all of a sudden you're like, this dude from the Acolytes is facing him.
Right.
What is going on?
24 championships. For JBL, and again,
good job, really good. It's just I don't know. I never saw him as a main eventer.
Outside of his clothesline, I can't remember a moment that he had.
You know what? I never got into him either. Never cared for him. But I gotta say, I do like him on the color commentary.
He does a great
team.
job.
He's great at commentary.
Job.
But stay out of the ring. You know, I mean, he never was a
I'm
great
gonna stay out of
wrestler.
the ring, Maggle.
Not only a good commentator, but I don't know if you guys ever watched the Legend show. For like,
oh yeah,
he's a phenomenal interviewer.
He's
like,
good.
He does his homework, and the guests are like, "How the hell did you know where I went to 5th grade? Like, what are you doing, man?"
Should have always
Smart
been
dude, man. Super smart dude.
Should have always done interviewing. Should have never stepped foot in the ring.
The one thing I'll say quickly about JBL, and I wonder how fans at that time when he got the push took JBL, because why is he not a less athletic Dolph Ziggler? Because people are going crazy about Ziggler, and you said, like, this guy from the Accolades got a shot? Well, this guy from the Spirit Squad got a shot. Like, he felt like an internet darling, sort of like us wrestling fans, like, whoa, this guy's getting a push. Like, it'd be like a good program or a school, like finally having success. I agree with you. Like, I didn't like the character at all, but it's like, I could see as a fan of wrestling, seeing an older guy who paid his dues finally get a chance, like Guerrero and others.
Here's why that didn't go the same way with Ziggler. One, it had been like 6, 7, 8 years. It was fresh with JBL. That previous pay-per-view, he was in a tag title match with Farouk.
You're talking the build-up to the title
Right. It was
chase.
too quick.
Yeah,
it was way too
yeah.
quick.
I think it's true, yeah.
So on to number 3 for me, Ultimate Warrior.
Oh,
now,
that hurts.
yet again, this is simply like you said, guys. What I grew up watching, character-wise, promo-wise, yeah, Warrior's up there. Look, he's up there. But his ring work, holy crap.
It's so bad.
That's the thing. Like, you know, I could have somebody on, like, off of this list who's great at everything, and it's okay in the ring, but not great. Warrior is so bad in the ring that it makes everything else horrible. In my opinion. He had something about him that was insane, but I heard a remark where when he won the Intercontinental title, somebody's like, "Oh, congrats, good job on winning." It's just another piece of luggage.
Yikes.
And that's
I mean, he never understood the business.
No,
he
and
shit on
that's-
the business, in fact. I mean, I hate that part of it. I hate that part of it.
But he's on there because through all the years he would wrestle, he never got better.
Not one of the greatest wrestlers, but one of the greatest entrances.
Oh, yeah.
totally.
I mean,
Totally.
I used to do that entrance all the time.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right? I loved the Ultimate
Without the
Warrior
legs.
as a kid. I
Or
thought he was the
muscles.
greatest thing since sliced bread. That DVD, or maybe back then, it might have been a VHS. The VHS that comes out, it's called The Rise and Fall of the Ultimate Warrior.
Oh yeah,
It was
that was
dope.
DVD. I
And
got
they
that.
just crush him,
Which
in
was
that thing.
bullshit because I mean, he was a bad guy. Like Jim Hellwig, bad guy, not easy to work with, dick. didn't like shaking guys' hands. He was just a bad guy. That's what the sentiment I gathered from that DVD. But and I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
man.
good. I like where you're going with this.
So like the Warrior, I forced myself to separate the Hellwig with the Warrior, and the reason that he's not on my list, Vinny, I really contemplated putting him on this list because his wrestling ability is some of the worst we've ever seen for a guy that was over as he was. But again, when I think of the total package of a wrestler, I think of look, mic skills, in ring. He's got 2 of the 3, 10 out of 10. And I also think as a fourth component is moments. You guys have heard me say this. Like, what moments do I think of? WrestleMania 6, Toronto.
Mania 7 with
championship,
Savage.
Championship versus championship. 7 versus Savage, the retirement match. I watch that match once a year. I love that match. And I also think of the SummerSlam and the tag match. And and then the comeback, and then the WCW, the Halloween Havoc with Hogan. I can contemplate it because he is so bad at the fundamental thing that we're talking about, professional wrestling, right? Wrestling. But there's more to it than that, and because of that, he's not on my list.
The fact that you had this Halloween Havoc match and the other 2 matches in the same sentence frightens me. I know you didn't mean to do that on purpose. I know you didn't mean to do it on purpose.
I get it.
But it's one of the worst matches of all time.
Ever.
And the WrestleMania 6 match, if we had to write a paper about how much we liked wrestling, great matches, you could really probably put a good essay up there and say why WrestleMania 6's main event is better than WrestleMania 3's main event because Hogan loses to someone. Yeah. He actually says, I'm taking the pin 1, 2, 3 to this guy, and I'm going to pass the torch.
Yep.
He just passed it to the wrong guy.
He didn't want to.
And we saw a guy hold both the most prestigious titles in the business for the first time ever. It was almost like, wait, what are they going to do? Because, is he going to be both? It was this, conundrum of, he's double champion. That was so cool to me.
Vivid memories of sitting in the living room watching that pay-per-view. Just, it was amazing. And I also want to say it was great. It goes to show you that you just never know. With Vince and the Warrior patching things up a few years ago. When Warrior with the Hall of Fame. That was just awesome seeing him up there with his family, heartfelt speech. And then, of course, I was really sad. I'm sure a lot of you guys were.
It's creepy almost
shortly
how it all
after
happens.
that. Was
right?
it a couple
A
days
day
later?
after Raw,
Yeah,
like
it was literally
24
He
hours.
gave that ominous speech. That was weird,
It was, but I'm glad that he patched things up with Vince.
3 for me? Is it 2 for me? Oh, man.
it's 2
Did you
for
already
you.
say
I
your
can't believe
3?
this, man.
We're on
This is
2.
awesome. Here we go for number 2. I feel like it's another one that's going to face criticism, but I'm okay with it.
Jesus.
I've embraced it, and especially for you guys in the 90s. You're going to crush me on this one. And number 2 is Bret Hart. Here's why. I know. And then there goes Zach. He's leaving the room.
No, he's coming over to your side of the counter. He's turning the lights off. He's out of here.
Zach, hear me? The lights have now turned off. The
Show's over.
Let me tell you about why Bret Hart's a bit overrated, and I know you don't want to hear it. Let's go back to the greatest feud in wrestling history. When wrestling took off in the 90s, right? It's WCW versus the WWF. And the WWF, when it was failing in, unfortunately, Zach's childhood, when it was really hitting the dive, is when Bret Hart was going to be the guy. And
An inadvertent pun.
Look, I'm not going to criticize any of the matches. WrestleMania 10 with Michaels, in the ring,
12.
I would 12, thank you. I would get crushed with all of the matches, and I know Bret Hart can go in the ring, no doubt about it. But they hitched their wagon to a guy, and he was the one when the company was going under. This is like talking about in sports when you sign a franchise player, and your team is going 20-62 in the NBA, and your opponents are starting to catch up to you. So you go, okay, Bret Hart, not great on the microphone, great in the ring, charisma with the Canadian fans, a little bit more than the American fans, and we saw them with the Austin feud a bit. So, okay, he's a great player. Let's put him on another team. I don't even want to do the Carmelo Anthony because it's going to hurt me deeply, but he kind of feels like the Carmelo Anthony of basketball, where you go to a kind of decent team. Now WCW with Goldberg and the dominant monster contract. He didn't do anything in the WCW. The WCW then got worse when Hart was there. I know injuries are involved, but when every time he had a spotlight to be the guy, to pass Hogan, to be better, the industry got better when he left. Austin and Rock. That's why it kills me for Bret Hart here. He's number 2 on my list.
Can I make a quick remark?
Sure,
I
go
want to
ahead.
say about you, they passed the torch. They put the belt on him when the company's starting to go downhill. Do you not blame that on Max Moon and Papa Shango? Not Bret.
What do you mean, his opponents?
Look at the roster. 93.
It was bad.
94.
It was bad. When Macho and Hogan left, that was as destitute, I think, as the business has ever been.
But I would have loved to see Bret in WWE in the Attitude Era, because that 97, I was going to say
97,
arguably his best year.
God. Yeah, and he got better on the mic because Bret's always been so bad on the mic. I mean, very little charisma, very little. But 97, when he's feuding with Michaels and he's actually being himself on the mic, and he's actually talking about those American fans. Like, this is one of those guys that I'll disagree vehemently because he's one of my favorites all time. But when I remove my own emotion from it, like I had to do earlier with Luger, you see some of the stuff you're talking about. Terrible mic skills. It was kind of fleeting when he was on top. Doesn't have an unbelievable look. It was the in-ring that was the best part of Bret, because Bret, wrestling-wise, 10 out of 10.
I couldn't put Bret on there because I actually got into the ring with Bret at an indie show.
Wait, what?
Come on.
This was one of the greatest highlights of my life. I, as a kid wanting to be a wrestler and then changing that when I realized I was in no shape to do it and could never do it. I want to go back. It might have been about 5 years ago, maybe a little longer, an indie show. Bret's in the ring. I did a little angle with this guy who ended up knocking me out or something. So Bret's in the ring. He's doing the sharpshooter on this guy, and I got the run in the ring while Bret's in the sharpshooter, kicked the guy in the back of his head a couple of times.
Wow.
It was
And
a
you
highlight. I have video. I will show you guys off air.
Wow.
I'll gather the video and show you. It was
And
just
you did it
awesome.
and you did it through a radio.
It was through a radio promotion,
Yep.
and it was Northeast Wrestling, one of the indies.
Wow.
And it was just so much fun, and Bret was great, and got to give him a high five in the ring.
Nice.
We all aspire to be the Tig Man.
I could never put him
Except
on
for
this
guys.
list.
No, I mean, he's the pink and black attack.
You- go ahead, Zach. We're going to say that?
No. I was just
I
going
was going to say one thing about the whole overrated list. You could hide being a bad wrestler. Like, we found that out today. Like, if you're not good in the ring, they'll give you something else.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put being a great wrestler as my number one if we'd rank, like, what you need to be a great wrestler. Like, there have been Takamichi Inoku was good in the ring. Like, Juventud Guerrera could go in the ring, but they weren't world champions.
Was Taka in the choppy yo PP thing? Because that was gold. That
Taka
was gold.
could go. We all
that
know.
was gold.
Go watch the cruiserweights. They can all wrestle.
Love it.
All right, we're moving on to number 2 here for me. My last 2, by the way, you're probably going to be devastated, all of you. But and this list can, you have to factor in. I do not like these final 2 on this list. Never been a big fan.
Don't feel the need to explain yourself. Fuck him.
But I am going with number 2. I find him boring. Not very impressed with him. He calls himself the new face of fear. And he's your champion.
Yeah.
Bray Wyatt. He's the help me out here.
Eater of Worlds.
No, but champion-wise.
Oh,
he's
WWE champion on
he's
SmackDown,
the
yeah.
WWE
Some
champion.
fan. You don't even know the main title.
Well, I don't watch SmackDown much. I'm not happy with the product. But yeah, Bray Wyatt, when he came out, I never liked the gimmick. That whole world in his hands song I found to be annoying. They dropped it, thankfully.
Bring back
because
Husky Harris.
I think they got complaints and they dropped that stupid theme song. They did
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They went with the more
Oh.
ominous one, but the whole world in his hands. The Sister Abigail, him in the corner with the head upside. I just it doesn't do anything for me. And I know you guys are probably into Bray Wyatt and you like his in-ring work. He's good on the mic. He is good on the mic, but I'm just never. He hasn't done anything.
He's
for me.
probably the best right now. Maybe besides Cena, I guess, on the mic, and that makes his
Jericho?
character. Jericho too. He's
Kevin
always-
Owens was
in that
impressive.
conversation.
Kevin Owens is good. I think
On Raw a
Jericho
couple
and
weeks
Cena are
ago.
more the veterans. I guess I push Wyatt closer to like a younger guy still in the business. I'm trying to think of anybody that I really like Wyatt because I can't compare him to anybody else. Like there's one part in wrestling, and I always say to like my buddies who aren't in wrestling, like when they watch certain people in the ring or even on the mic, they're like, something's wrong with him. Like
Yeah.
he has mental problems.
And that means you're doing something right.
Austin, The Rock, McFoley, those guys were like Shawn
What?
Michaels, like he was so cocky. There's something wrong with these guys. That's why I like Wyatt. I really believe, even as a grown adult, I'm like, something is wrong with you. You need to be put away.
I like Wyatt too. I like him. I like him, Tig. And these lists, we reiterate this because we're all friends. We don't want to hurt each other's
Yeah.
feelings. But for every
Diesel.
reason you.
Hashtag heel.
For every reason that you don't like Wyatt is for literally all the reasons that I do like him.
Gotcha.
Just from a character standpoint, if you can get 20,000 people to all do the same thing,
That's impressive.
He's got this unique little look to him. He's got the upside down thing. For me, I'm very casual wrestling fan nowadays. You don't hear me comment too much about wrestling right now. I watch it. I watch all the pay-per-views, but I'm not a weekly watcher.
Which is why I couldn't tell you the title.
Right.
So
So you and I are kind of on the same page there. If it's appointment TV, I'll watch. But when I flip over and I see Bray Wyatt, he does have a tendency to make me stay on the channel.
I personally, I also agree that Wyatt, for the reasons you hate him, Tig, I love him. He's different. I'll say, guys, I can kind of compare him to an Undertaker, but at the same moment, I don't. For the main reason that he's real. Undertaker, he wasn't portraying somebody with this over-energetic vibe or this big personality. Taker didn't talk on the mic for how many years other than 3 words? But Wyatt, to me, very good, both in-ring and on the mic. And Husky Harris, I mean, he could have been something, too. So
Don't leave Husky alone. Leave him alone.
should have never put that man in tights, just saying.
Number 2 on my list is one of 7 WCW Triple Crown winners. One of the best looks I've ever seen, one of the worst speakers I've ever heard, one of the worst in-ring wrestlers I've ever seen in my life, Scott Steiner.
Okay.
I couldn't believe WCW put as much time and energy and titles on Scott Steiner as they did. I thought he was one of the worst things for the business. Look-wise, I want to and I'm straight as an arrow. I have a wife. I wanted to put my hands all over his torso and the peaks, just to prove they were real. It's like, look at those peaks. Look at those peaks.
Like they may have been real to physically, but whatever was going into those things may have been artificially enhanced.
Right.
I couldn't put Steiner on the list. He's in the names in contention, but I look back to Steiner's first half of his career. Look at some of those moves he was doing.
With the Steiner brothers.
The Frankenstein. What's that one move where he gets you up and he flips you into a pile driver?
Yep, I remember that. I don't think you can do that anymore.
I remember I was watching a shoot interview. Somebody in TNA, what's going to be the finish of the match, Scott? I'm going to do that move. You realize you haven't done that in 15 years. You're saying I can't do it?
Yeah.
That answer alone makes me question what, and I know this is the Bray Wyatt, but what the hell's wrong with Scott Steiner? Where did you go from being this varsity Letterman jacket wearing amateur wrestler to having a blonde goatee and your biceps so steroided? Was he eating steroids? What was going into that body? Because he could have been a good enough athlete to pull off the
my fat thighs aren't as big as his arms were.
And that torso tat is
what is going on with that thing?
It's not as bad as Brock's, but
and a known dick in the business.
Yeah, terrible guy,
dick.
a bully, terrible guy.
Yep.
All right, so number 2 on my list, going along with somebody from WCW, and that would be Mr. Bill Goldberg. He's on here, in-ring work. He was okay, but I mean, he ended Brett's career. One strike. On the mic, yet again, he wasn't atrocious, but he wasn't good. His look, while it may have been cool for the time, it was basic. And that's no disrespect because it worked for Austin. But there are so many things, all these matches he was having, he was winning, and he was doing it in a minute and a half. It stopped making sense.
Hey, you're saying he's still going.
And he should not be in that match. That's the thing. Goldberg is on this list because, let's go back to, you're saying Brett was becoming the face of the company as the ship was sinking. So was Goldberg.
He also elevated the company, though. I mean, you don't sell the George Dome on a Monday night.
Ooh.
They didn't, but they...
Perfect retort.
I was waiting for that.
That should have been a pay-per-view main event.
And you're right.
That's a different podcast.
That's another thing, too, right? It should have been a pay-per-view. The thing about Goldberg, and I get where you're going with this, Vinny, if we were in a time machine, I guess maybe Tig, you can speak more to this, that I feel like wrestling fans who are older than the age of 12 to 14 watching Goldberg couldn't stand him. Now, being a kid at that time, I thought Goldberg was the closest a come-to-life superhero there was. And watching him dominate, it was awesome. I'm still convinced to this day, and I'm positive of it, that fan base still, and I know older wrestling fans like us get frustrated with this so much, that you have to deal with the kids as your primary fan base.
Yep.
When Goldberg got tased by Hall and then Nash ends up, and I get the crowds cheering that Nash is winning. The kids, like myself, were furious. Like, we had another option. I remember, like, they lost, Goldberg lost, I'm going to Raw. And I think even though the finger poke of doom, right, even though the finger poke of doom gets blamed, I'm positive that moment, me along with so many other kids got so pissed that Goldberg, their hero, lost. And not only lost, but was cheated to lose. Like, if another face beat him, I still wonder back, like, oh, someone's better than Goldberg? I'll hop on the bandwagon. That's why I look at Goldberg for there.
All right, your turn, guys.
Oh yeah, we're on to number one here.
The number one. This one, as a wrestling fan, I feel like he should not be number one, but we have to go through a course of an entire career. And this guy's had a long career. Number one on my list is The Undertaker.
Oh, you went there.
And hear me out on Taker. I got to go another sports analogy for you.
I can see this, though.
The sports analogy is this for Taker, and Zach, you'll appreciate this. It is the guy who the season happens, any sport, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NFL. Imagine the regular season happens, and you have a pretty good guy at a certain position. Mariano Rivera is a closer for the Yankees. Not so much Tom Brady for the Patriots, but you know where I'm going with this. He doesn't do the regular season. He shows up for the biggest game of the year. Oh, you guys made the Super Bowl, huh? I'll join on. Hey, you guys made the World Series. I'll hop on. That's what Taker's become, not from like 2012. I'm talking, I remember sitting at my buddy's house in 2006. Taker's coming back. That's 11 years ago.
Right.
Taker's been doing it for over a decade where he shows up when he feels like it, gets all the glory, and then checks out. If he did that for like a 3 to 4 year window, I'd be like, okay, Taker's been great. He's been doing it for 10 years. This guy shows up when he feels like it and wrestles at Mania. Taker, for me, as great as he was in the 90s, he's number one on my list.
On to Zach's thing about moments, though. Does he have a resume of moments, in my opinion.
I hope they're moments. He's at the biggest games of the year. Like,
yeah, but
sports.
here's the thing. When he lost, and yes, while the undefeated thing, whatever, that can bring another point to your story. When he lost, that whole crowd gasped.
Yeah, it was a cool moment. Yeah.
So, like, just saying, the World Series was built around him for so many years. There's my
take on Taker is kind of what I referred to earlier.
Yeah, nice.
Is that Taker is held in the most highest esteem, like a Rock, Austin, Flair, Michaels from the last 30 years. He's held in that type of regard. He's top 10. If we did top 5 wrestlers in the past 30 years, you'd be well within your right to put him on there and not come off as like heresy. But people put him at that echelon, and I'm with you guys. That's why I almost put him on this list, because I don't think that his actual... Man, I feel even guilty saying this about Undertaker because he's such a pillar of the business. I don't feel like his shadow is fulfilled by what's actually there. I think his shadow stretches longer than what is actually standing there.
Sort of like the Wizard of Oz. You know, you finally find out who the Wizard of Oz is. And at one time, like, Taker's got to stop wrestling in Mania. How long are we to go till he's 70? It's like one point it's going to be not
his
believable.
chest is looking like a pizza dough.
The dude's going to be 65
like,
and he's still going to buy like the Taker's going to dominate some big time wrestler at Mania. It's going to hit a point where like, yeah, I don't know. No.
By God, guys, I can't believe we agree on something.
Whoa, that's what I'm talking about.
Undertaker, my number one most overrated. I don't have to really add much to what God said. I just never was a huge Taker fan.
Yeah.
Very limited with his moves when he first started off. You know, he
was meant to be.
The punching, the walking the ropes, you know, the choking. He got better as years went on.
Tombstone was kind of cool, but
Tombstone was cool.
That's one move.
It's like a 69 for dudes.
But
jeez, stand up 69, of course. Yes.
But I got to tell you, in recent years, his Tombstone sucks.
Yeah.
There are too many times that I've seen when he tombstoned Brock Lesnar. Mm-hmm. It was terrible. Mm-hmm. And I said, Brock can't be going down to that. Come on, you got to get up. Your head didn't hit the mat. That pisses me off when I see let me tell you, it pisses me off when I see a bad, over the years, a pile driver, you know, but even the
worst
tombstone.
I ever saw with Undertaker is when, this is going to be thrown way back and maybe because this I know for sure is before Gaz and Vinny's time, because I think the year was 1992, and they had an event. I forget if it was Survivor Series or Tuesday in Texas, but Undertaker won the title from Hogan.
That was
Flair
Survivor
slid
Series
out
91, and I do know that one.
He slid out the chair, right?
Yeah.
And Taker pile drives Hogan, but there's like legitimately half of a ruler in between Hogan's head and the chair. It was embarrassing.
There's a
moment.
story to that, too, because Hogan was pissed. He was claiming backstage that he hurt his neck, he tweaked his neck, he didn't protect me, I hit the chair. And for years, Taker felt horrible about this until somebody showed him the footage in 98, and he goes, we got to beat this bastard. He comes back, and you know how Hogan returned the favor? He gave the belt back to him.
Wow, look at that. Now, you have Luger at number 1, so
I
we
do
just
have
need
Luger at
Zach
number
Bias
1.
number 1.
Yeah, so number 1 on my list is a fella that has spent his career in WWF, WWE. He is a Grand Slam winner. He's won 23 titles.
Better not say Shawn Michaels.
It is Kane.
Okay.
Oh.
No, not okay.
Kane for years, the WWE has tried to tell me that I need to watch. And outside of his feud with The Undertaker in the late 90s and that brief stint with Austin, I have been out on Kane. Then he took off the mask, and which I really believe that he was unrecognizable as far as a person because he had a mask on and wanted to be recognized. They took the mask off. They took the voice box away. They took it. They stripped him of his original character, and they're still trying to tell me that Kane is some staple in the business. And the only reason I think, in my opinion, that he's a staple in the business is longevity, that they've kept him on the roster, much like Big Show, but he doesn't bring anything to the table.
You know what, Zach? He could have been on my list, too. I mean, never got into Kane, never. I'm like, what the hell are people seeing in this guy? Did you like the corporate Kane?
I mean, I thought it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Wrestling in khakis.
I mean, right. They literally, negate the clout that he built up as a character, and I understand you can't ride out the same thing every Monday night for 10 years in a row, but I thought they stripped him of his uniqueness, and then they continued for another 15 years to have him compete and to have him throw out all these guys in the Rumble and 23 championships and main events. They just had a main event thing last year under some gimmick. It was so stupid. I'm so out on Kane. He's number 1 on my list of most overrated wrestlers ever.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen corporate Kane job at a house show in the most recent years. I mean, he was one of the first matches on the bill. He's jobbing to, I can't remember who he was.
If we did a list of the 10 worst moments in wrestling history, Kane might be on the list 3 times.
Yeah.
Or maybe even more than that. From him setting Jim Ross on fire to Katie Vick to him almost setting the things that Kane's been Lita's pregnancy, didn't a baby get
pregnancy? Oh my God!
Didn't a baby get punted into the stands by Gene Snitsky or something? Vinny, all the worst moments in history revolve around one guy, and it's Kane.
And how is he still holding a job?
I don't get it.
What is going on there?
I've heard the guy who plays Kane, Glenn Jacobs, is brilliant.
Yeah.
He knows 3 languages. He may run for office.
He used to be
Kane's
Isaac Yankem DDS
Yes,
in the
I
mid-90s.
saw him at some house shows. That was during a bad period too, right? Was that
Yeah.
the?
Oh, yeah.
That was when these arenas I was going to, they were half full.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it was terrible.
Think about his name. He's a dentist. Isaac Yankem DDS. That's
That was 95.
That's like an IRS guy being named Erwin R. Shyster.
Yep.
All right, Vinny, since you already gave us your number 1, let's let you start with the recap. Your top 5 again.
So my top 5, number 5, we have got Hulk Hogan. Number 4, Kevin Nash. Number 3, Ultimate Warrior. Number 2, Goldberg. And number 1, the Lex Express, Lex Luger.
My top 5 again was Finn Balor at 5, Ric Flair at 4, Triple H at 3, Bret Hart at 2, and Undertaker at 1.
How dare you with that flair? I got to tell you, should not be on anybody's list. My list: most overrated. Number 5, Rikishi. Number 4, John Cena. Number 3, Ryback. Number 2, Bray Wyatt. Number 1, Undertaker.
My 5 most overrated wrestlers of all time. Number 5, Lex Luger. It hurt me, but I had to put him on there. Number 4, Batista. Number 3, JBL. Number 2, Scott Steiner. Number 1, wrestling's eyesore, Kane.
I like that.
We're going to be back next week. Vinny's got a nice intro for us to close this out for this week.
That would be an outro, wouldn't it be?
It's an outro.
I thought I said outro.
You called it an intro.
It's his first day in radio.
Come on, Rich. Tell us what the show is.
As the heel turns,